Welcome back to South Beach. It was just 22 years ago. A young Coach Shanahan had an explosive offense, traveling to San Diego to try and win his first Super Bowl. 22 years later, from California to Miami, Florida, a young Coach Shanahan with an explosive offense looking to win his first Super Bowl. So slide on in here, partner. We have someone that might be able to tell us a little bit about that whole thing. And of course, it's a zoo out here from what we can see. But as a coach, trying to keep everyone focused, what is that like?
Well, I think it's really interesting because, if you've been in the National Football League for any length of time, you know how hard it is to get here. And you want to take advantage of that opportunity. The first 3 times I was involved in the Super Bowl, we lost. And it's really, you're not even sure if you're ever going to get back. And then I have been lucky enough to be back 3 times with 3 wins. And so you know what the difference is. So when you do get here, you want to have your game plan in. You want your guys to be focused, ready to go, because you never know when you're going to have that opportunity for this to happen again.
So the game plan, is the game plan already in? Are you ready to play the game like a week before? That Sunday before, and then this is just all mental preparation?
Well, it all depends on which organization you're with. I know the first 3 Super Bowls that we went to, we didn't get the game plan in until we actually got here.
Okay.
And then the next 3 I was in, we had it done completely. We were ready to go. Because there's so many distractions when you do come here, especially if you've never been here before, with the family and friends and all the things that are involved with it.
How's Kyle handling all that right now?
I think he's handling it very well, because he's got his game plan in, he's focused, and the 49ers did a great job of taking care of the families and all the problems, that you would normally have because they've been there so many times.
Right.
When he was in Atlanta, so he was there with Atlanta.
Right.
Did they do that? Did they have the whole game plan ready before? Or was that something where they did it differently, and then he called you and he said, "Hey, what was the key there? Should I be prepping in Miami or before?"
No, they had the game plan in.
Okay.
Yeah, they did. They realized all the distractions and talked to a lot of different people, and they were pretty excited once they got there that they did do it that way.
I'm fascinated by this entire 49ers offense. Obviously, that was your specialty in the history of the Shanahan scheme, so to speak, right? And the evolution this year. How different is this year's team from maybe the other iterations that Kyle's been a part of, that you've been a part of through the years?
I think part of it is trying to put your football team together. You do have a philosophy, something that you believe in. But when you come to an organization, sometimes it takes you 1, 2, 3 years to get those people in there. And I think that's what Kyle's been able to do, to get the offensive lineman that he wants, to get the type of fullback, tight end, wide receivers that buy into the running game. And then off of that, if you got a great running game, you're hoping to have a great play action game with it. And I think that's the key to any offense, is to be able to come up with big plays, both in the run and the play action game. And because everybody understands in 3rd downs, you're going to drop back.
They know you're passing.
They know you're passing. You've obviously got to have a great plan there as well. But so many things that are that go into it. It's
interesting. You mentioned the run game married to the play action game, and this is something that we talk about a lot. With analytics becoming more prevalent and people using math to study things, and the idea of establishing the run and within the game itself. What is your philosophy going into a game, knowing you don't want to get to 3rd down where your quarterback is kind of in the midst of a defense that knows they're gonna pass the ball? Do you want to use the quarterback more to throw the ball on those early downs, or do you need to run the ball to kind of establish it?
Well, it all depends on how the defense is playing. When you take a look at a defense, and are you getting an 8-man front? Are you getting a 7-man front? Are they playing quarters where the secondary is very soft? Or are they very aggressive? If you're getting an 8-man front, are they linebackers that play downhill? They play lateral? There's a lot of different ways. Is it a 2-deep scheme? So I think you have to be very flexible in your approach to, hey, are they going to give you some big plays in the running game? Are they playing you a lot of 2-deep coverage? If you're playing a lot of 2-deep coverage and you're stopping your running game with the 7-man front and you can't get any yards running the ball, you're going to be in for a long day.
Yep.
Are you surprised at how much success the Niners have had this year, even with confidence in your son? Are you surprised that they're the number 1 seed and just how well they've played from start to finish?
To be honest with you, I was thinking that they had a good chance because, with the addition of some of the people they got on defense, the thing that I've been surprised at, they've lost a lot of players.
Right.
When you go to your 4th and 5th tackle, and these guys come in and play well, and then all of a sudden you get a couple wide receivers banged up, and in defense the same thing, and so it's a pleasant surprise when you see some guys that get their opportunity to really take advantage of it.
You guys were known for the outside zone play is kind of like the staple, right? For you guys. Is that, have you seen that evolve too, just through the years, and now with the other wrinkles that are added by both of the Niners and other teams around the league? Yeah,
the basic principle of the outside zone kind of still stays the same, but obviously the techniques are improved every year.
Yeah.
And your ability to execute it. But the thing that's really been different is all the different formations people can do it out of.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, one week to the next, you might be running the same plays, but the defense is not really sure what you're doing. And then you have adjustments off of it, where it's maybe full flow. Fullback going one way, tight ends going one way, changing gap responsibilities of the defensive linemen. Those are the things that I think that have really caused defenses to kind of play a little bit softer than they normally would play.
The quarterback, Jimmy G, has gotten a lot of talk about whether he's good enough to win a Super Bowl. He threw 8 times in the conference championship. How can a quarterback throw 8 times and truly be a good enough quarterback? What do you think of the way Jimmy G's played this season? Overall kind of take on Jimmy G?
Well, first of all, it's his first year as a starter where he's played 16 games. And then I take a look at the games like New Orleans. I mean, how do you get into New Orleans? You just score 49 points. And, he had to make plays.
Yep.
And you watch other games. So it all depends what the defense is doing. And people say, well, God, you only had to throw it 8 times.
Yeah.
Right.
You ran it over 40 times. Well, why'd you do it? Well, because we were averaging 5-6 yards a carry. Yeah. And all of a sudden you can run the football on somebody, man. You take their will away. One thing about a defense, they take pride in stopping the run. And if you can run the ball on a team that knows you're going to run it, and you had a chance to win the football game.
So you have enough faith in Garoppolo from what you've seen, because everybody else has that recency bias of what's happened in the playoffs.
Oh, no question. Well, when teams load the box and they're going to take the running game away, that's when your play action game comes on 1st and 2nd downs, and you can't have the -5 yards or the -7 yards. You got to be able to get that 1 or 2 yards or the 4 or 5 yards. You try to keep the defense off balance. We're not really sure what you're doing. Are you going to run it? Are you going to play action? Are you going to bootleg it? You're going to drop back, max protection? Sorry about that.
Oh, it's all good.
The nice thing about the PFF Happy Hour is things like this happen. We had Bruce Gradkowski come in here yesterday, fresh off of a beach run, and pop into the shot. So this is like par for the course over here. Yeah. Does Jimmy G remind you of anybody from either this era or maybe a past era?
I'll be honest with you, when Jimmy got hurt last year after the Kansas City game, and then he got operated on, I was with him for about 2 months, and we had spent like 3 or 4 hours a day for 4 or 5 days, during the week, and we just talked football. Now, you hear a guy that comes in from a different organization. It's like learning a completely new language.
Completely different schemes, right?
And so we had a chance just to sit back and go through the installation schedule, which is normally, as you go through camp, maybe 7 or 8 days. And we went through everything, the running game, where you'd sit down, relax, talk about defenses. He's not getting ready for a game because he's on IR. He's not playing the rest of the year. And then to watch him over a 2 or 3 month time frame, you knew he was starting to understand the system, the language, and he's a sharp guy and very likable. And so, he's a guy you're always pulling for. He's got such a quick release.
Yeah.
And he's got the ability to make the big play. I think the more accustomed he gets to this offense, and he's going to get better every year, so he's fun to watch.
Have you noticed anything defensively through the years where teams they're adding their own new wrinkles? Is there a major difference between, say, the 90s, 2000s, in the last 10 years or so as far as the way defenses are playing?
Oh, I think it changes all the time. It all depends on the philosophy, just like offenses, Back, when I was in San Francisco, we'd go to a, put Jerry Rice in the backfield, and George Seifert asked me, what are you doing? I mean, that was something that was kind of off the wall. I said, well, it's about the only place we could put him where they're not going to double team him.
Right.
And so, George was, very flexible, but it was fun to be able to do some of those things, even back then. But now it's more the norm.
I was going to add something else on that. Oh, the other quarterback. We got to ask about Patrick
Mullins?
Yeah, Mahomes.
Or Mahomes.
Mahomes, I'm sorry. I mean,
yeah.
We're talking all Niners here, but Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs, Andy Reid's offense and the way they've evolved. What are your thoughts on Mahomes? Did you have thoughts on Mahomes coming out? We've talked a lot this week about our pre-draft evaluation of Mahomes and how he's obviously exceeded all those expectations. Do you have a history of what you thought about him, the way he's evolved, and just how special?
Well, to be honest with you, I really didn't study him that much when he was in college. I knew what direction I thought the 49ers were going to go, and so I didn't really study the quarterbacks. Probably should have with what type of athlete he is. But I've just been so impressed with the guy and how he handles himself, how he makes plays that are off schedule, and nothing seems to faze him. And with the type of weapons that he has, he's really fun to watch. He's a difference maker.
So consistent. That's the crazy thing to me is he makes those big plays. He makes those like Russell Wilson out of the pocket plays, but he also doesn't take sacks, and he's so accurate at every level of the field that even when you do take it away, I mean the Titans didn't give up a big play until the end of the game, but he just did not miss at any level. So
I mean, when I look at him, I go. You just mentioned Russell Wilson. The more I watch him, I just go, how can he keep on doing that, making those plays consistently, and still not get hit? No one to slide, no one to throw the ball away. And Mahomes, reminds you of the same type guy. And some of the angles he throws the ball on, you go, wait a minute.
Yeah, doesn't make
that's
sense,
a
right?
baseball background. You say, only maybe a great baseball player could do that, and it's really fun to watch.
What do you think the key is then, for a guy with that much talent, obviously has a lot of weapons, is the key to the game then the Niners offense being able to keep up with that attack, or is there a defense that you think can slow them down?
Well, like we talked about, what do the Niners do? What's their game plan? Well, I don't think you really know what your game plan is until you find out what the opposition's doing to you. It's your job to be able to react to what they're doing. On the other side of the ball, offensively, you can, if you want to do what they have been doing, spread the defense out, you're going to have to give your quarterback time, because you give him time, Mahomes, he's going to make some plays, and that's where it comes down to your pass rush. Right. Or if you give him too much time in that pocket, he's going to make those plays.
Do you think all week I've been saying from a pass rush standpoint for the Niners, because he's scary outside the pocket, right? So how do you balance staying in your pass rush lanes, not overcommitting, making sure you don't miss the sack, even if you do beat the guy in front of you, versus I've seen teams kind of compress the pocket on Mahomes a little bit, make it a little bit tighter, keep him in there, and I think that's the best bet, if you're trying to slow him down. Do you have a feel for that and balance in that?
No, I just say, that's what your game plan is, because if you don't keep in those rush lanes and you don't put pressure on him, he's going to make plays, and that's how you get beat. And not many people can do it, because, they're a good offensive line. They put a lot of people out. Mahomes knows he'll get to second, third receiver very quickly.
Right.
And if he doesn't, he'll scramble inside or outside and make plays on his own. So, it's a great challenge to the defense to be able to put pressure on him.
I want to ask you about the motion that the San Francisco offense uses. They've run more motion pre-snap than any other team. And it seems as though they're evolving the way motion is used almost pre-snap, that it's just continuing to give them more information, but now also to maybe actually move defenses more so than just give information. Is that something that, we didn't chart, back in the 90s or anything, but when was motion beginning to, be something that you would use to not just identify coverage, but also to move defenses?
Well, I think it's obviously you're seeing it more and more today, because you know how much it changes gap responsibilities. That if you're going against, we mentioned a man front 3 deep coverage or man free coverage with the free safety in the middle field, compared to a quarter, half. Who's got which gap? How deep are they? With the different motions, the trips, or 4 guys to a side. I mean, there's so many different things you can do where you can change gap responsibilities, and if you can do things very quickly, and your tight end and your fullback are going one direction, the other direction, all of a sudden you got a home run, and you didn't block anybody because the person's got the wrong gap. And so those are the things I think you're seeing more and more, and where you're saying, well, how did this defense give up 200 yards rushing or something? Well, and usually they're minus a gap somewhere in the,
That was like the story of the Packers game almost.
Yeah.
There's just continually just a gap wide open.
Is there something to, so by our numbers, Kyle's run a lot more gap scheme and everything this year, which, it's not something you guys really did back in the day a whole lot, right? You don't run a whole lot of
well, I think it all
power
depends what a defense is doing.
Yeah, I know. It still comes back
and
to
how
that.
they play. Everybody ran gap schemes.
But you didn't, is it fair to say you didn't run it as much as some other teams that had a more balanced mix?
Well, a lot of people didn't believe in the zone running game. You
Right.
got to believe in something. Some
Right.
people, that's what they believe in. That's what
Right.
they're going to do is all gap. There's nothing wrong with it. But the one thing that I found out, it's very hard to do that when you're not going full speed.
Yeah.
The one thing about the zone scheme is you can practice that without pads.
Yeah.
Because you're using your hands. And if you're on the left hash, by the time a defensive guy, he's got to run 30 yards.
Right.
And he's got to come all the way back, and that thing can cut back anytime. So that's where it starts.
Right.
And then from there, you can adjust depending on what your philosophy is.
Yeah. Going back to the quarterbacks real quick, as far as the way you evaluate quarterbacks, is it similar to Kyle? And if you guys have the same philosophy, what are most important things you're looking for when you're evaluating quarterbacks?
Well, I think, there's so many different factors. First of all, you're looking for the intangibles. What is the guy made of? What's his character? And then you can see very quickly if he's got the athletic ability. Can he process things quickly? Is he accurate? Is just a strong arm? All the different things that you really don't know for sure until you're with that quarterback. You think you know, but you really don't know until you got him on a day-to-day basis and you see how he reacts in game situations. But some guys process things very quickly, others don't. If you don't, the chances of being a real good quarterback, not very, it's kind of slim.
Are you able to, how much of that can you get out of the pre-draft process? As you mentioned that until you're with them in a game, and many games, you don't know. What do you even feel like you can glean?
I think a lot of people are trying different, they've got different thought processes on how they evaluate quarterbacks, and they're trying to figure that out. It's not a science, that's for sure. Or, it's really hard to predict what's going to happen with different guys, but I think once you get them and you're around them, you can kind of see very quickly, yeah.
All right, so fast forward to Sunday afternoon. The 49ers have won the game. They've won the game if they do this one thing. What is it?
Well, first thing you always look at, and it's turnovers. You can't turn the ball over. You can't beat yourself. And I don't care, And then what you want to be able to do is score in red zone. You want to score touchdowns, not field goals. And so that goes back to the basics. Yeah. But I think, one of the the keys to anything is that you got a quarterback that's a great player. What do? You got to put pressure on him. Remember when Dan Marino and Joe Montana were going against each other? And all the back was at 86? And I took a look at it. I started going back looking at the stats of Joe Montana. I said, how does this guy have 16 touchdown passes in the Super Bowl and no interceptions? I looked at that game. I said, Dan Marino threw the ball 50 times. He ran it 9 times. What an advantage for Joe. Joe threw it 24 times, and they ran it 44 times against some pretty good defenses going out there. But you put Dan Marino, who was tearing it up at that time,
right,
and you don't have any running game, and you got a really good defense. Usually, it's going to be hard to make those plays against a team that's consistently good.
It's going to be interesting because 50-9 sounds about like what you might get from Kansas City, the way that they're not, they just don't run the ball. It's almost amazing. They really just do not run the ball.
Yeah, they don't, but, it's like anything. You've got to have time. That quarterback has time. Yeah. And if he is able to scramble and make the plays where Dan wasn't able to do that, then, you're in for a long day on defense.
Yeah, that's why Mahomes has had average games where they still scored 24, 27 points.
Yeah, they're in the 30s. I remember when they played him a year ago in the third game. God, I think they had 30-something points at halftime.
They scored on five touchdowns, 5 straight drives. It's ridiculous.
That's not too bad.
No.
It should be a good battle, right? Chiefs against the way that Niners defense is.
I think it'd be a great game.
Yeah. All right.
Game pick?
What's that?
Game
Who you
pick.
got?
Yeah.
I can't tell by the color of your sweater, though. You know,
No,
could
you
be
can't.
either.
I
You
know.
could go either way.
I know I think that was a tough decision between both organizations. Which one was going to be red? Which one was going to be white?
Mike, we appreciate it. Thank you
Yeah.
for stopping by.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
That was great. That was awesome.